Hey, Hills College family, man, I am so glad that you have joined us today. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or whether, hey, listen, you're a part of a living room, which is the goal, okay? I am so glad that you're sitting here, that you're set that time, and it is an honor to be able to spend it with you today, man. We've been in this series called The Problem with the Promise. And the reality is, man, for this last 3 weeks, I feel like God has challenged us to a new level of growth as a community of people. We kicked off things, we've been studying the life of Joshua and this massive transition in his life where he goes from following Moses and the leadership of Moses to now being the person that it is going to lead the people of Israel. Okay, these people of Israel that left Egypt 40 years ago, and now they're about to enter the promised land, man. And Joshua gets tasked with this massive responsibility to be the one that lead the children of Israel into the promised land. I mean, what an amazing promise. But how many of you guys know that not necessarily because you have a promise don't mean that you will never have problems? We have been discussing that the bigger the problems, the bigger the promise. And this idea of, like, I believe with all of my heart that us as a community of people, we're standing in the outskirts of what our promised land is. And as we stand into the outskirts of this promised land, we're going to encounter some problems. I mean, the first week, we kick things off of this problem of letting go of old manna. Right? Remember that? Like the Bible says in Joshua chapter 5 that when their foot step into the promised land, manna stopped. I mean, think about the growth and the maturity that the people of Israel had to do now to work the land and to eat produce from the land. Man, how many of us, right? We want to enter a promised land with the old miracle of manna. See, every miracle that the Israel people experienced was leading miracles that will ultimately lead them to the greatest miracle of all time, which was the promised land. And in order for us to step into the new miracle of the promised land, we have to let go of the old miracle of manna. The second problem that the people of Israel encounter was the problem of confronting the truth. Right? Remember Joshua standing at this gate, and there is the commander of the Lord's army. Now we know God, and Joshua asks him, "Whose side are you on? Are you on my side, or are you on their side?" What is God's response? His response was neither one. And Joshua gets confronted with the truth of, like, hey, this is not your dream. This is not your plan. This is my plan, God said. And immediately when Joshua gets confronted with the truth, Joshua worships and bows down and says, "God, whatever you want me to do." See, the question that we should be asking is not whether God is on our side or not. The question we should be asking is, are we on God's side? Are we on his plan? And let it be that as we're writing our story, he's the main character. As we mark and as we step into our God, what God has for us, we have to make sure that we're on his side. That this is not about us. It's not about my plan. It's not about my dreams. It's about him. This is his story. So let's start writing our story with him as the main character of it. Now, the third plan that we're gonna see today, I call the problem, not the plan. Okay, what's the third problem? It is a problem with obedience. The problem with obedience. See, God is going to speak with Joshua, and He's about to give him a very specific command, and we find that in Joshua chapter 6, and we'll begin on verse 2. But the Lord said to Joshua, "I have given you Jericho, its king, and all its strong warriors. You and your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. On the seventh day, you are to march around the town 7 times, with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horns, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse, and the people can charge straight into the town." See, here God gives Joshua a specific command. I want you to go to Jericho, and I want you to march. Here is the battle plan. And here's the thing I want to tell you about obedience, okay? Obedience, I believe, is most important key in our walk with Jesus Christ. But here is what obedience truly is. Obedience is you actually don't know if you're obeying someone until you know you do these two things, okay? Number one, you do something you don't want to do. Number two, you do something you don't understand why you're doing it. Do you want to know if you're being obedient or not? Run it through those 2 points. Are you doing something that you don't want to do? And are you doing something that you don't understand fully why you're doing it? I mean, think about it for a second. All of us are living our Christian life where it's like, oh yeah, I'm being obedient, I'm obeying God, I'm still in the same relationship that I've been, that is so toxic, right? I'm still doing the things, I'm still showing up to church. I mean, this is actually not bad. I mean, you have a community, you get to sing cool songs, you get to come and experience the growth of the church and the transformative power of the gospel. But really, when it comes down to obedience, all of this is fun. But what I want you to know, that Christianity and following Jesus is us going, bro, I don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing. Yo, like, I don't want to do this, but God is asking me to do this. That is true obedience. Look at this. I don't want you to miss this. Like Joshua says, okay, the time has come for us to enter into Jericho and for us to enter into the promised land. So what's the battle plan, God? And God says, I want you to march. Okay. And how many of you guys know and understand that God's plan always looks different than your battle plan? I mean, Joshua goes into this, and I was just like, God is like, okay, God, like, what's the battle plan? I mean, like, do you want us to go and get the swords? Nah. God, do you need us the spears? Like, no, you don't need that. Okay, how about bow and arrow? Like, like we bows and arrows? Like, no. So God, what do you need us to do? God says, I want you to sip your lips, and I want you to march. Oh, and by the way, carry some horns as an instrument of worship. Now we need to march around the top. Wait, what? Yeah, man, I want you to get the choir. Let the choir and the priest lead the way. And I want you to march. And by the way, I want you to sip your lips. Don't talk. Take your Christian hat for a second. Okay, let's take our Christian hats off. How ridiculous is this plan? Do you want us to go into Jericho where there is giants, where there's all this opposition, where there is trained warriors inside the walls, and you want us to go and march, don't talk, and come out with our little guitar and ukuleles and march around? That's the battle plan? Whoa. God tells Joshua, I want you to get up and quietly, in plain sight, I want you to march around the walls of Jericho. God's plan always look different. God's battle plan will always look different than your own battle plan. You and I, we want to do it our way, don't we? We actually find peace in doing it our way. But God said, no, I have a different way. Some of you want to go get them, right? You want to go get them. You want to post about them. God said, no. I want you to bless them. I want you to forgive them. But they hurt my feelings, God. Like, I need to defend myself. I'm a Christian, and I've been betrayed and I've been mistreated. And God said, no, I want you to forgive them. Don't post anything about them. Love on them. Respect them. Honor them. Whoa. The battle plan of the Lord will always be different than your own battle plan. Some of us, can we be honest for a second and recognize and admit that we don't fight like God does? Because we don't think his strategy will actually work. Some of us really truly believe that our strategy, our plan, our battle plan will work. And we find peace and comfort in that. And we don't follow God's plan because honestly, deep down in us, we don't believe that his plan will actually work. That his strategy is dumb. It doesn't make sense, and because it don't make sense, we don't fully trust it. And yet we come to church and we worship God and we says, God, take it all. We trust you. And we're good with it. God, I trust you with my salvation, but my relationships, I got that. yeah, your strategy doesn't fit my strategy with my relationship. So now I got that. So Joshua's like, okay, what's the battle plan? You know, swords, army, you know, like, let's go, let's kill them all. And God said, I want you to march. Get quiet, march, and carry some worship instruments with you. Whoa. Some of you have ended up broken after dating so many people because you still refuse to take strategy of God for your life. Because you don't trust it. So many of you have burned every deep friendship because you don't believe and trust the strategy of God for your life. So many of you, can I just be honest, I'm so glad you're coming to our ministry. You're being a part of our community, of our church. But can I be honest? Unless you take the strategy of God and start obeying Him, this will be another church you try out. This will be another community that you just choose to be a part until Pastor Brian or Pastor Brian hurts your feelings. Then you leave to the next church because you're refusing to take the strategy of God for your life when it comes down to being a part of a community and a part of a church. Can we be honest for a second? Deep down inside of us, we don't trust that His strategy will actually work. Because His battle plan, His strategy, looks different than ours. His strategies are different. And for some of you, Brian said, for some of you, you've been taking the strategy of God and you've been marching around. You're like, here I am. I'm ready to shout. I'm ready to shout. I'm ready to shout, Brian. I've been marching for quite too long and I'm ready for victory. I'm ready for recognition. I'm ready for my movement to advance. I'm ready to experience the growth of my obedience and the outcome of it. I'm ready, Brian, to take what belongs to me. I'm ready to go and step into the promised land fully. How much longer do I need to march? Some of us have been marching and marching and marching, and there's these massive walls right in front of us that will not come down. I hear you. I sympathize with you. I feel what you feel. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, here we go. Another day of marching. I understand that can be frustrating. That you've been marching and you've been obedient and all you see is walls that are not coming down. Please hear me out when I said this, and I pray that God deposit this in your heart and you believe it. If God said 7, please don't stop at 6. If God said 7, please don't stop at 4. Don't stop at 3. If God told you 7, you got to keep on marching. Don't give Him 6. If God says 7, don't give Him 6. If I tell my boys that I coach in soccer 6 laps, I expect them to do 6 laps. If I tell Noah 4 laps and 10 push-ups, I expect him to do all of that. If God has called us to do 7 laps, let's don't give Him 6. We got to keep on marching. The journey of following Jesus is this journey that says we got to keep on marching. It may look silly. It may look dumb. Marching in plain sight, playing instruments. Whoa, what are we doing? Oh, I'm marching. Yo, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you doing with your life? I'm marching, man. I'm marching. I'm obeying God. It may not make sense to anybody else, but I'm marching and I'm gonna keep on marching. If God said 7, I'm not gonna stop at 6. When I was a kid, I remember my mom's command, or my mom would tell me to do something, and the moment I asked why is the moment that chancla. If you don't know what chancla is that you know what chancla is. It's the shoe, right? It's that sandal. That sandal will fly across the room. We didn't ask why. Why? Because sometimes I needed to trust my mom to understand that she may not have the time to explain me the why. She just needed to tell me a command, and not as a kid, as a son to her. I just needed to obey her. Noah's and Mercy's favorite question. Guess what question is? Why? Hey, go put your shoes. Why? I want you to go do it. Why? And now that I'm a dad, guess what? I recognize that oftentimes I don't have to explain, and I don't have the time or the reason to explain the reason of my command. I just need them to trust me. I just need them to obey me, to listen to me. Can I tell you? We are oftentimes too immature to understand the command. But just because you cannot understand it, it doesn't mean it's true. So it is time for us as a community, you know what, to trust. Our call as Christians is not to understand, but to trust. And not just because you can understand it means it's not true. So in this moment, as a community, let us make a decision to say, God, I may not understand it, but I trust it. And I want you to check, look what verse 10 says. Look what Joshua says. It says, do not shout. Do not even talk, Joshua commanded. Not a single word from any of you until you shout. Then you shout. It's interesting to me that there is this specific command for the people to the people of Israel that says, you know what? As we're marching, I don't want you to say a word. Why is it? Why did God also commanded them to do that? Well, because you remember their parents? Remember what they did? And these are the children of complainers. And guess what? I believe with all my heart this leadership principle is what you watch is what you repeat. And Joshua understood that this task was going to take everything in them. And the most dangerous things that they have is right here in their lips. It's their tongue. I mean, Joshua said, march. You don't need no weapons. You don't need nothing. And one thing I want you to do, I want you to keep your mouth shut. Shut. Why? Because Jericho is not your problem. Those walls right here, they're not your problem. You know what their problem was? Their mouth. It's that tongue of ours, isn't it? Our tongue, it is the most powerful thing we have. And for some of you today, guess what? Your promised land is not the problem. The walls are not your problem. God's command is not your problem. Your problem is your tongue. You talk too much. We talk too much. We have so many opinions. Oh, we should do this or we should do that. And we do believe that we have the answer. And God is calling us as we're marching, as we obey, as we're doing things that make no sense. And God is saying, I want you to keep your mouth shut. Because the moment you open it, it can destroy the very thing God has promised you. Why do you say that, Brian? Because I believe that with all my heart that gossip is the most dangerous thing for a movement of God. Gossip will bring dishonor, and dishonor will destroy your calling from the inside out. So please do me a favor, God says. There's a miracle in progress, and I want you to keep your mouth shut. Be quiet. And if you can do this, you will see victory come your way. For some of us, the best thing we can do for our calling right now is just to keep our mouth shut. Be quiet and start being obedient. Shut your mouth and see what God can do. Shut your mouth and see that God will do the very thing you cannot do. So I want you to look at your neighbor right now, and I want you to tell neighbor, shh. You did it. You did? Hopefully you did it. And I want you to turn to your other neighbor and say, neighbor, there's a miracle in progress. So we gotta shh. I believe with all of my heart, as we stand in the outskirts of our promised land, my friend, God is calling us to go out and march and keep our mouth shut and obey and trust that He has our best interest at hand. Please, let us don't stop marching, because I feel like a lot of us, what we're doing right now, we stop marching and we start talking. And God is saying, I want you to keep on marching. I want you to keep your mouth shut. I want you to obey. I want you to trust. I want you to, as you get under authority, you will discover your own authority. Keep on doing what God has called you to do. If He calls you to do 7, don't give Him 6. Whatever God has called you to do, you keep on doing it. It may seem, my friend, right now that you're just going in circles, that you're not advancing, that you're not making any progress. But can I remind you? It is God who records your steps. He is the one who holds your growth and your progress. He has in control. So don't stop marching. Keep on doing what God has called you to do. And as you're seeing all this wall, there's a God in heaven that sees beyond these walls. As all you see is all these obstacles and all this opposition, and you're just out here marching with your little guitar, worshiping Him, giving Him adoration. That's what true worship is, by the way. True worship is not a feeling or 3 songs before a message. Worship is saying, God, I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna have a heart of gratitude. I'm gonna give you everything that I have as I'm marching, as I'm stepping to the unknown territory. I'm gonna worship you. I'm gonna obey you. Obedience is worship. And as you obey, I believe with all my heart that His presence comes with you. So look what happens in verse 15. On the 7th day, the Israelites got up at dawn and marched around the town as they had done before. But this time, they went around the town 7 times. The 7th time around, the priests sounded the long blast on their horns, and Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the town. Jericho and everything in it must be completely destroyed as an offering to the Lord." The promise came to pass as they obey. Look what verse 27 ends up with. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his reputation spread throughout the land. It is a beautiful picture of obedience for you and I to understand that one day these walls will come down. As you march, don't just march, but march in purpose. March understanding that be ready, but when God tells you to shout, be ready to shout. Don't just be marching, but be so in tune with the will and the word of God and in prayers that when God says, this is it, you do it. The walls came down and Israel that day overcame. They didn't need all the weapons. All they need was their worship. So you, as you march, get ready to obey. When the Lord says shout, you shout. And my friend, I believe with all of my heart that we will see one of the greatest movements the college and young adults have ever seen in Columbus, Georgia, and in the Phoenix area. Are you ready? I believe if we overcome these problems of letting go of old manna, this problem of saying it's not about us, it's about Him, and understanding to be obedience, my friend, God says, hey, go and make disciples of all the nations and baptizing them in the name of the Father, of the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And as you obey everything that I've commanded you, that's the secret. As you obey everything that I command you, be sure of this: I am with you, even to the end of the age. My friend, obedience will bring out His presence. As we obey, He comes with us. As we march, He comes with us. And when we shout, He will be there with us. We will step into the very thing He's promised us to step. So I hope you're ready. Buckle up, because I believe we will see what He promised. I love you.